Welcome back, audience, to another episode of the True Crime Archives. I'm your host, CJ Data.
And the co-host, Pitt McCarthy.
Okay, now, Pitt, this one was your pick. The Vampire of Sacramento, Richard Chase. This one's yours. Yours now. Take the scene.
Alright, so let's see, what do we begin? Just an overview, really. So let's start with the basics, like his birth date. He was born as Richard Trenton Chase on May 23rd, 1950, in Sacramento, California. Not much is really known about his childhood, but other than by the age of 5, he exhibited evidence of all three parts of the McDonald's triad, which is an outdated theory on psychopathy. And so that's really the most we know about that. And also in his adolescence, he was said to be a heavy drug user.
All right. Sounds like he didn't have that good of a childhood.
Let's see. Now on to his early adulthood. As he grew older, he developed hypochondria. For those who don't know, hypochondria is an abnormal fear of having health problems. And he often complained that his heart would occasionally stop beating, or that someone had stolen his pulmonary artery.
Sheesh.
He would also hold oranges on top of his head, believing that vitamin C would be absorbed into his brain through diffusion.
Oh.
He also had a belief that his cranial bones had become separated and were moving around, and he shaved his head so he could watch his skull move around.
Oh boy.
So he was just starting off. This dude was, I guess, pretty crazy just starting off.
Yeah, it doesn't help with uses of drugs and from my research, yeah, he was also beaten as a child.
Oh dang! So yeah, he definitely didn't have that great of a childhood.
Definitely not.
After leaving his mother's house, at some point, believing that she attempted to poison him, he rented an apartment with some friends. However, they complained that he was constantly under the influence of alcohol, marijuana, and LSD. And it wouldn't surprise me if it was all three of them combined.
Oh boy. And keep in mind, I believe this is the 60s and 70s at this point. So yeah, that was just the scene at that time.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure it would have been 60s, early 70s when he was living with them.
Yeah.
It was also reported that he would walk around the apartment naked, even in front of company. He didn't care who was around. He would just walk around naked, just completely trashed on alcohol and drugs.
Oh boy.
And his roommates demanded that he moved out, but when he refused to, they just moved out instead. When he was left on his own, however, that's when things started to get real crazy. He started capturing and killing, as well as gutting, various animals that he came across, and he would eat them raw, and often mixed the raw organs of soda in a blender before drinking it. And he believed that doing so would prevent his heart from shrinking.
Where is he getting these beliefs from?
I'm pretty sure they were all in his crazy head. But, so yeah, that was that. Now, onto a little bit later. He spent a brief time in a psychiatric ward in 1973. Not much is known about that. In 1976, he was involuntarily committed to a mental institution when he was taken to a hospital after injecting rabbit's blood into his veins.
Oh boy. I'm surprised that didn't kill him right there.
Oh yeah, I'm kind of he got lucky on that. That's for sure. He's also lucky he didn't get any diseases from eating all of those raw organs and whatnot.
Oh man.
I mean, judging by those habits, you'd think that he would have been dead long ago.
Yeah.
The staff at that mental institution named him Dracula because, of course, of his blood fixation. He broke the necks of 2 birds that he caught out of a window and drank for blood. And he was also known to extract blood from therapy dogs with stolen syringes.
Jeez.
He was eventually diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, and after going through a battery of treatments involving psychotropic drugs, he was deemed no longer a danger to society, and later in 1976, he was released into his mother's custody. However, I don't know what his mom was thinking, but his mom was like, you know what, we're just going to get you off these medications, keeping you from going insane for some stupid reason. And she got him his own apartment. He initially shared it with roommates before all of them moved out, and I'm pretty sure for obvious reasons. He probably did some crazy stuff.
Again, probably same stuff.
And well, that was that. And later on, in 1977, he was stopped and arrested on this reservation in Pyramid Lake, Nevada. And the reason for his arrest is because, I don't know if it was for reason, but
Covered in blood.
I guess he was acting suspicious. His body happened to be smeared with blood, and a bucket of blood was found in his truck. However, the blood turned out to be cow's blood and no charges are filed. We have no idea where he got the cow's blood.
Yeah, I'm surprised there wasn't action for, butchering cattle or something like that. But
so I'm kind of surprised though that they still didn't throw him in a mental institution after that. You'd think they'd be like, okay, this dude needs to really be locked up. But clearly they didn't. But because of him being out and about, this is when the real crazy stuff begins. On December 29th, 1977, he killed his first known victim. In a drive-by shooting. The victim was a man named Ambrose Griffin. He was a 51-year-old engineer and father of 2. It happened as he was carrying groceries in after a shopping trip. He just drove by and just
yeah. Man.
Now that was his first murder, and it wouldn't be his last. But it also happened to be his least gruesome murder. It gets way worse.
I'll bet. Keep going.
So, 2 weeks later, he attempted to enter the home of a woman, but her doors were locked. So he walked away. Chase later told detectives that he took locked doors as a sign he was not welcome. And if you had a door unlocked, it meant he was welcome to come inside.
What kind of logic is that?
Yeah, who knows how crazy his head was? Who knows?
Or he's when there's this thing with folklore that says, oh, a vampire cannot enter your house unless you invite them in.
Oh, well,
it's just dumb.
that probably did have to do with part of his name, his nickname, the Vampire of Sacramento.
And all his blood. All right, let's go.
Was also a blood.
And I said some graphic stuff is probably gonna come up here.
Yeah, but graphic stuff is gonna come up because he was. There was another reason why he was called a vampire.
All right, let's go.
On, oh yeah, so also it was not so real, not a murder, but also another gruesome occasion, but not murder. He was caught. He was caught and chased off by one couple returning home as he was going through their belongings. But not only did he go through the belongings, he also went into the infant child's bedroom and defecated and urinated all over the child's bed and clothing.
Oh,
So yeah. So now we're gonna get into some disturbing stuff here. Viewer discretion advised.
all right.
On,
Yeah.
on January 23, 1978, Chase broke into a house and shot Teresa Wallen, who also happened to be 3 months pregnant at that time.
That's messed up.
So after he shot her a total of 3 times, he proceeded to engage in necrophilia while also stabbing her, cutting her open with a butcher knife, removing multiple organs, cut off one of her nipples, drank her blood, and on top of it all afterwards, he went into the backyard, grabbed some dog feces, and shoved them in her mouth before he left.
Oh. This is not funny. This is just uncomfortably shocking.
Yeah, that he was obviously very out of control.
Clearly.
So, a few days later, on January 27th, Chase entered the home of a 38-year-old woman named Evelyn Miroff. He encountered her friend Danny Meredith, who he shot with his .22 handgun. He ended up then shooting Miroff, her 6-year-old son Jason, and her 22-month-old nephew David Ferreira. Yeah, I think I pronounced that right. So after he did that, he proceeded to mutilate Miroff's corpse and proceeded to engage in more necrophilia and cannibalism. And what scared them away was a visitor knocked on the door, and he proceeded to flee in Meredith's car, taking her nephew's body with him. And the visitor alerted a neighbor who called for police, and when they came to the crime scene, they discovered that he had left complete handprints and shoe imprints in her blood.
Jeez.
He was arrested soon afterwards, and when they searched his apartment, they found that the walls, floor, ceiling, refrigerator, and all of his eating and drinking utensils was soaked in blood. Ooh. Everything was just blood-soaked.
Yeesh.
And also, as for the nephew whose body he took, his body was found later decapitated in a box right by a church.
It's messed up, man.
And the head that was found was also broken open, so leading to believe that he probably ate the brain or something.
Oh.
So, after being arrested, in 1979, he stood trial on 6 counts of murder. They tried to avoid the death penalty and get him charged to second-degree murder, which would result in a life sentence because of his history of mental illness. However, he was found guilty of first-degree murder, and murder after they rejected the reason of not guilty by insanity, and sentenced to die in a gas chamber.
Jeez.
And one of the reasons why I think they decided to do that was they found a calendar in his appointment with for that year with further dates throughout the year that was circled that said today throughout the year. And the previous dates that were circled coincided with the previous murders, so chances are he was premeditating those murders for more murders for those days.
Ooh.
So, in fact, he was highly feared by other inmates because they were well aware of the violent nature of his crimes. And according to prison officials, other inmates actually tried to convince him to commit suicide.
Yeesh.
So, during his time in prison, he granted a series of interviews with a man named Robert K. Ressler. And during those interviews, he spoke of his fears of Nazis and UFOs. And
Oh boy.
he claims that even though he had killed those people, it wasn't exactly his fault because he had to do it to keep himself alive. And he asked Ressler to give him access to a radar gun with which he could apprehend the Nazi UFOs so that the Nazis could stand trial for the murders. He ended up also handing Ressler a large amount of macaroni and cheese, which he had hoarded in his pockets, believing that prison officials were aligned with the Nazis and wanted to kill him with poisoned food.
Jeez.
And it said that he also believed he was Jewish, even though, well, he wasn't.
Likely not.
So yeah, that was that. And then to end the whole story, on December 26, 1980,
Day after Christmas.
Yep, the day after Christmas. A prison guard came by his cell, and he was lying in bed. The guard tried to get his attention, which he didn't respond, but that was relatively normal of him. So the guard went about his way. And then the guard checked a little bit later, and he was just slouched over on his bed. And when the guard went in to take a look at him, he was found dead.
Oh boy.
And when they did the autopsy, it was found that he had committed suicide of an overdose of medication that he had been hoarding for a while.
Oh boy.
And even though he had complained of issues like throughout his life, of course, of like his heart shrinking and whatnot, there was, of course, really nothing like that wrong with him.
Dang.
So that is the end of the story.
Dang, man. Just dang.
It doesn't state in any sources, unlike some serial killers, it doesn't state any sources what happened to his body afterwards. We don't know if he was buried, cremated, if the ashes were spread somewhere. We have no information on that at all.
Oh man.
So, I mean, I guess it wouldn't surprise me if he was just buried in a prison graveyard.
Didn't know those were a thing. But dang. I've seen a lot, but just hearing the stuff described is just whew. Man.
Yeah, this dude should have just been locked up. He really should have before he had the chance to commit murder, but nah, due to the negligence of the first negligence from his own mother getting him off of medications that he was originally on, what didn't help matters. But it was also due to the fact that the authorities didn't just say, hey, you know what, you're staying in a mental institution.
Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, I'm pretty sure what caused it all probably was his heavy drug use throughout his adolescence and early adulthood. And probably, a lot of it probably was the drug use.
And not to mention the abuse he suffered as a child.
Yeah.
Well,
So all of those combined just ended up turning a man into a monster.
Definitely. Well,
oh yeah, I forgot to state the location where he was held in prison. He was held in this prison known as San Quentin State Prison.
is that in California as well?
Yep, it's in the town of San Quentin, California, which is in Marin County, California.
Wow, this one was definitely one of the more extreme ones, that's for sure.
Yeah,
And
definitely very extreme.
And we've talked about the Toy Box Killer, Pol Pot and King Leopold II, and Augusto Pinochet.
Oh yeah, those guys are pretty bad in their own right. But as for just sheer mental insanity, he has to take the cake because while the others were definitely very evil, and while Pol Pot himself was pretty insane, Pol Pot was not schizophrenic and didn't chop people up and commit necrophilia.
Oh boy. As far as you know, that is.
Yeah. With all the sources that we have about him, though, I'm pretty sure he didn't. Because if he really did that, people would have come out and have said so.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Catch us in the next episode. Good night, audience.
Good night, audience. See you next time.